The Grand Hall of the Galactic Council shimmered like 1,000 stars. Tall windows stretched from floor to ceiling, showing the swirling purple nebula outside. Around the massive round table sat the greatest heroes of the Milky Way, each more impressive than the last. Their annual gathering always brought together the most powerful beings in the galaxy, but this year felt different. Jack Stone sat quietly in his chair, trying not to fidget with his plain black uniform. He was the only human in the room, and it showed. Next to him, Commander Axe's crystalline body sparkled with inner light, changing colors with each movement. Across the table, Swift Hunter Reed floated a few inches above his chair, his energy-based form rippling like the surface of a calm lake. The others were equally impressive, some made of pure light, others existing in multiple dimensions at once. "The reports from Sector 7 have been concerning," announced High Council Leader Bright, his voice echoing through the chamber. His form, made entirely of golden light, cast warm shadows across the table. "Our monitoring stations have detected unusual energy patterns." Jack listened carefully, making notes on his simple paper notebook. The other heroes used advanced mental recording techniques or simply absorbed information directly into their enhanced minds. But Jack stuck to his pen and paper, earning a few looks of pity from the more evolved beings around him. "Display the readings," ordered Bright. A hologram appeared in the center of the table, showing a star system with dangerous red swirls around its central star. "These quantum fluctuations began 3 standard days ago. They're growing stronger." The council members murmured among themselves. Jack squinted at the display, drawing a quick sketch in his notebook. Something about the pattern seemed odd to him, but before he could think deeper about it, a blaring alarm cut through the chamber. Red emergency lights flashed as a new hologram appeared, this one showing an urgent distress signal. The quantum readings had suddenly spiked, threatening not just one system, but potentially dozens of neighboring ones. "This is unprecedented," said Quantum Master Vale, his multi-dimensional form shifting anxiously. "The energy patterns suggest a cascade failure. If this continues, we could lose an entire sector of space." Jack raised his hand, waiting to be acknowledged. Some council members looked surprised. They usually just projected their thoughts directly. High Council Leader Bright nodded at him. "The pattern," Jack said, his voice sounding surprisingly ordinary in the Grand Chamber. "It's not random. Look at the way it pulses." He held up his notebook, showing his simple sketch with a few quick calculations in the margin. "It's too regular to be natural." The council fell silent. Commander Axe leaned forward, his crystal body chiming softly as he moved. "The human is correct," he announced, surprise evident in his tone. "These are artificial patterns." "An ancient weapon," whispered Swift Hunter Reed, his energy form flickering with concern. "It must be. The patterns match old records of the Lost Empire's quantum technology." The chamber erupted in worried discussions. The Lost Empire had vanished millennia ago, but their weapons were legendary. If one had been discovered and was now active, the danger was far greater than they had initially thought. High Council Leader Bright raised his hands for silence. "We need a team," he declared. "Our best heroes must contain this threat before it destroys countless lives." Jack continued making notes, not expecting to be chosen. Humans were respected enough to have a seat on the council, but for dangerous missions like this, they usually selected the more powerful species. He was so focused on his writing that he almost missed hearing his name. Commander Axe for strength, Swift Hunter Reed for speed, Quantum Master Vale for power, Wright was saying, and Jack Stone for. There was a slight pause. Tactical analysis. Jack looked up, surprised. The other council members were staring at him with various degrees of doubt and curiosity. He straightened in his chair, tucked his notebook into his pocket, and nodded firmly. Little did any of them know that this simple human would soon show them a kind of strength they had never imagined possible. The chosen team gathered in the council's launch bay, preparing for their mission. Jack Stone checked his basic equipment one last time. emergency oxygen pack, medical kit, toolkit, and his trusted notebook. Around him, his three superhuman teammates were deep in discussion about quantum mechanics and energy fields. Commander Axe's crystalline form towered over Jack, nearly 9 feet tall and glittering like a diamond under the bay lights. "Human," he said, his voice ringing like distant bells, "are you certain your protective gear is sufficient? The quantum anomalies we face could tear apart even enhanced beings." Jack double-checked the seals on his suit. "It's not fancy, but it works." He patted the reinforced fabric. Sometimes simple is better. Swift Hunter Reed drifted closer, his energy form casting a soft blue glow over the equipment. "I've never worked closely with a human before," he admitted. "Your kind is so." He paused, searching for a polite word. "Solid." "That's one way to put it," Jack smiled, making a final note in his book. He'd been studying the quantum readings from the distress signal, and something about them kept nagging at his mind. Quantum Master Vale appeared suddenly beside them, his form shifting between dimensions as he moved. "The Council's ship is ready," he announced. "They've given us their fastest vessel, the Starweaver." Jack followed his teammates aboard the sleek ship. Unlike the utilitarian human vessels he was used to, the Starweaver was almost alive. Its walls pulsed with energy, and the control systems responded to thought alone. He took a seat in one of the few physical chairs, designed specifically for solid beings like himself. As they launched into space, Commander Axe took charge. "Our target is 6 light-years distant. The ship's quantum drive will get us there in 3 hours." His crystal body hummed with power as he connected to the ship's systems. "We should discuss strategy." Jack pulled out his notebook, flipping to his earlier calculations. "The weapon's energy signature has a pattern," he explained, showing them his drawings. "Every 9 minutes, it pulses in the same sequence. If we time our approach right, we might slip through during the low points." The others stared at his paper drawings with a mixture of curiosity and confusion. They were used to complex holographic models and direct mental calculations. "How can you be sure?" Swift Hunter Reed asked, floating closer to examine the notebook. "Your methods are so primitive. Sometimes the old ways work best," Jack replied calmly. "Complex problems don't always need complex solutions." Quantum Master Vale's form stabilized enough to nod. "The human's observation is correct. I've run the calculations through my quantum consciousness, and the pattern matches perfectly." He sounded surprised. As they traveled, Jack noticed his teammates watching him with growing curiosity. They seemed fascinated by his need to eat, his regular breathing, and his habit of taking notes by hand. "Why do you write things down?" Commander Axe finally asked. "Surely your memory is sufficient for basic data." Jack closed his notebook thoughtfully. "Humans think better when we can see our thoughts on paper. It helps us spot patterns, make connections. Different isn't always worse." The ship's alert system suddenly chimed, indicating they were approaching their target. Through the viewport, they could see the affected star system. The normally peaceful space was torn with visible quantum rifts, purple and red tears in reality itself. "By the ancient stars," Swift Hunter Reed whispered, his energy form flickering with concern. Jack stood up, tucking his notebook away and checking his suit one last time. The quantum rifts outside the ship were getting larger, and in the center of it all, barely visible, was what looked like an ancient space station. "That's where we need to go," he said, pointing at the station. "And I think I know how we can get there without being torn apart." His superhuman teammates turned to him, waiting to hear his plan. For the first time since the mission began, they weren't looking at him with pity or doubt, but with genuine interest. The ancient space station loomed before them, a dark shape against the chaos of quantum storms. Jack's plan was simple. They would approach during the 9-minute low points in the weapon's energy cycle, using the natural pauses he had spotted in his calculations. 3 minutes until the next window, Jack announced, watching his old-fashioned wrist timer. His teammates had perfect internal chronometers, but they found themselves glancing at his countdown anyway. Commander Axe guided the Starweaver through the quantum rifts, his crystalline form reflecting the purple and red energies swirling around them. "Your timing must be perfect, human," he said, tension making his voice chime like struck glass. 2 minutes, Jack replied calmly, though his heart was racing. Through the viewport, he could see pieces of space itself being torn apart and reformed. "Swift Hunter Reed, get ready." The energy beam moved to the ship's forward sensors, his form stretching out to act as an early warning system. "I sense active defense systems on the station," he reported. "They're old but still dangerous." 1 minute, Jack called out. He had already memorized the station's visible layout, noting what looked like a docking port on the lower level. "There's our entry point." Quantum Master Veil shifted through several dimensions at once, scanning the station. The quantum signatures suggest multiple security layers. This was not meant to be accessed easily. 30 seconds, Jack said, standing up and checking his suit one final time. "Remember, we go straight for the main control room. No splitting up." The ship moved forward as the quantum storms briefly calmed. Commander Axe's piloting was perfect, threading them through the narrow, safe corridor Jack had identified. They reached the docking port just as the storms began to build again. The station's artificial gravity was still working, though weakly. As they stepped out of their ship, Jack's boots clicked softly against the ancient metal floor. His teammates moved silently, floating, shifting, or gliding beside him. "The power readings are stronger this way," Swift Hunter Reed said, pointing down a dark corridor. His glowing form provided enough light for Jack to see. They moved carefully through the station. Jack noticed his teammates were surprised by how quietly he could walk despite being this solid being. Years of training had taught him to move almost silently when needed. Suddenly, a wall panel slid open, revealing the defense turret. Before anyone could react, it fired a burst of energy. Commander Axe stepped forward, the blast harmlessly reflecting off his crystal body. "Stay behind me," the commander ordered, but Jack was already moving, having spotted a pattern in the turret's firing sequence. He rolled under the next blast, reached the panel, and pulled out his toolkit. "What are you doing?" Swift Hunter Reed asked, alarmed. "We can destroy it." "Better to disable it," Jack replied, quickly connecting 2 wires. The turret powered down. Less noise, less chance of triggering other systems. They encountered more defenses as they went deeper into the station. Gravity wells, energy barriers, and temporal traps. Each time, while his superhuman teammates prepared to use their powers, Jack found simple ways to bypass or disable them. "Remarkable," Quantum Master Veil commented after watching Jack short-circuit another defense system. "You treat advanced technology like simple puzzles." "Everything's a puzzle if you look at it right," Jack said, wiping sweat from his forehead. The station was getting hotter as they approached its center. Finally, they reached a massive door marked with ancient warning symbols. Beyond it, they could feel the quantum weapon's power pulsing. The readings on Jack's simple scanner were off the charts. "This is it," Commander Axe said, his crystalline form resonating with the energy around them. "The control room must be inside." Jack checked his timer again. "We have 2 minutes until the next energy spike. Whatever we're going to do, we need to do it fast." None of them knew that they were about to witness something that would change their understanding of strength forever. The massive door to the control room wouldn't budge. Commander Axe's crystalline strength and Swift Hunter Reed's energy form had both failed to breach it. Even Quantum Master Veil's dimensional shifting couldn't find a way through. 1 minute until the next energy spike, Jack warned, studying the door's control panel. His scanner showed the quantum weapon's power building to dangerous levels behind it. "The whole station's going to be flooded with radiation if we don't get in there soon." "Stand back," Commander Axe ordered, his crystal body glowing with gathered power. "I'll shatter the entire wall." "Wait," Jack called out, spotting something in the ancient machinery. "Look at these marks. It's a manual override system." He pointed to a series of worn handles on either side of the door. "We need to pull both sides at once, right when the energy cycles down." Swift Hunter Reed's energy form flickered with doubt. "The radiation levels are already dangerous for solid matter." "I'll take the left side," Jack said firmly, moving into position. "Commander Axe, take the right. Your crystal form can handle the radiation better than anyone." 30 seconds, Quantum Master Vale warned, his form shifting nervously between dimensions. Jack grabbed the left handle, feeling the heat even through his suit's gloves. Commander Axe took the right side, his crystalline hands wrapping around the ancient metal. "On my mark," Jack said, watching his timer. 3, 2, 1, now. They pulled together. The door's ancient mechanisms groaned. For a moment, nothing happened. Then, with a screech of protesting metal, it began to move. That's when everything went wrong. A sudden surge of energy coursed through the door's frame. Commander Axe's crystalline body absorbed it harmlessly, but on Jack's side, a burst of plasma erupted from the failing mechanics. Jack saw the danger a split second before it hit. He could have let go, should have let go, but the door was only halfway open. If he released it now, it would slam shut, trapping them outside while the weapon reached critical mass. So he held on. The plasma burst caught his left arm just below the shoulder. There was a moment of searing pain, then nothing. The limb was simply gone, vaporized by the intense energy. His teammates froze in horror. Even Commander Axe's crystalline form seemed to pale. Swift Hunter Reed's energy pattern became chaotic with shock, and Quantum Master Vale's form flickered between dimensions rapidly. But Jack didn't stop. In one fluid motion, he pulled his belt free with his remaining hand and wrapped it around what was left of his arm, creating a tourniquet. His face was pale, but his voice remained steady. "The door's stuck again," he said through gritted teeth. "We need to keep pulling." His teammates didn't move. They stared at him, their advanced minds unable to process what they were seeing. Their species had evolved beyond such injuries, beyond the very concept of continuing after such damage. "Move," Jack shouted, snapping them back to reality. "The weapon's about to pulse again. We need to get inside now." Commander Axe was the first to recover, though his voice chimed with disbelief. You can still function." "Of course I can function," Jack said, already positioning himself to pull the door again. "I've still got one arm, don't I? Now are you going to help me, or are we all going to die here?" The others watched in stunned amazement as Jack braced himself against the wall, wrapped his remaining arm around the handle, and began to pull again. Blood dripped from his tourniquet, but his face showed only determination. Finally, Commander Axe moved to help, and together they forced the door fully open. Beyond it, they could see the weapon's control center, its displays pulsing with dangerous levels of quantum energy. None of them were looking at the displays, though. All eyes were on the human who had just redefined their understanding of what strength truly meant. The control room hummed with dangerous energy. Quantum readings flashed across ancient screens, warning of the weapon's building power. But the three most powerful heroes in the galaxy weren't looking at the displays. They stood frozen, watching Jack Stone as he made his way to the main control panel, leaving a trail of blood drops behind him. "How?" Swift Hunter Reed's energy form pulsed with confusion. "Your body is damaged. Your energy pattern is severely disrupted. You should be in shock, unconscious, or..." He couldn't finish the sentence. "Been through worse," Jack said, though his face was pale and sweating. He pulled out his notebook with his remaining hand, flipping to his earlier calculations. "Commander Axe, I need you to read these numbers to me while I work. My handwriting's a bit messy, and I can't hold the book and type at the same time anymore." Commander Axe's crystalline form resonated with a tone that might have been distress. "Worse? There have been incidents worse than this." The concept seemed to horrify him even more than the injury itself. "Broke both legs once, climbing Mount Everest," Jack said, fingers dancing across the ancient controls. Kept going for 6 hours to reach help. Now, those numbers. Please. Quantum Master Veil shifted between dimensions rapidly, a sign of extreme agitation. Your species, you simply continue functioning after such damage. Without repair. Without replacement. We adapt, Jack said simply. He pointed at the notebook with his chin. Commander, those numbers are critical. The weapon's building to overload. Finally, Commander Axe moved forward, though his movements were stiff, uncertain. His crystal hand shook slightly as he picked up the notebook. First sequence, 7 to 39 to 4. Jack input the numbers quickly, his remaining hand steady despite the pain clearly visible on his face. The others watched in a mixture of horror and fascination as he worked, occasionally wiping sweat from his forehead on his sleeve. Your pain levels must be extreme, Swift Hunter Reed observed, his energy form flickering anxiously. Yet your mind remains focused. How is this possible? Compartmentalization, Jack replied, not taking his eyes off the control panel. Humans are good at it. Pain is just information. Sometimes you have to put it aside to get the job done. He pressed another sequence of buttons. Next numbers. As Commander Axe read out the next sequence, Quantum Master Veil suddenly understood something. Your species never evolved beyond pain because pain never stopped you, he said, his multi-dimensional form stabilizing with the revelation. You simply learned to continue despite it. Something like that, Jack agreed. The weapon's warning sounds were getting louder, more urgent. Though right now, I'd really appreciate focusing on stopping this thing from exploding. The others snapped back to attention, finally breaking free from their shocked paralysis. Commander Axe's voice became steadier as he read the numbers. Swift Hunter Reed moved to monitor the energy readings. Quantum Master Veil began calculating possible outcomes. But they kept glancing at Jack, watching as he worked one-handed, his movements efficient despite the obvious difficulty. They saw him wince occasionally, saw the sweat on his face, noticed the tourniquet needed tightening, but none of them saw him hesitate or stop. Last sequence, Commander Axe announced, his crystalline voice filled with a new tone. Respect. Jack input the final numbers, then took a deep breath. Everyone ready. This should either shut it down or... He managed a small smile. Well, let's focus on shutting it down. The others moved closer, their powers ready to protect against any backlash. But their attention wasn't on the weapon anymore. In the span of a few minutes, their view of humanity and strength itself had been completely transformed. Jack pressed the final button, his remaining hand steady and sure. The fate of several star systems hung in the balance, but in that moment, an even more important change was taking place in the minds of the galaxy's greatest heroes. The ancient control room filled with blinding light as Jack's final command took effect. Warning alarms blared from every panel, and the quantum energy readings spiked dangerously on all displays. Did it work? Swift Hunter Reed asked, his energy form crackling with nervous tension. Jack watched the main screen intently, his remaining hand gripping the edge of the control panel. Wait for it, he said quietly. Blood was slowly seeping through his makeshift tourniquet, but his eyes remained clear and focused. Suddenly, the quantum readings began to drop. First slowly, then faster and faster, like water draining from a sink. The warning alarms quieted one by one, until only the hum of the station's basic systems remained. It worked. Quantum Master Veil confirmed, his form stabilizing as he analyzed the readings. The weapon is powering down. The quantum rifts are closing. Commander Axe's crystalline body relaxed slightly, chiming with relief. You did it, human. You actually did it. We did it, Jack corrected him, finally allowing himself to lean against the control panel. But we're not done yet. This place is going to tear itself apart now that the main power core is shutting down. As if to confirm his words, the station shuddered violently. Metal groaned and twisted around them as ancient systems began failing. We must leave immediately, Commander Axe said, moving toward the door. Then he noticed Jack wasn't following. "What are you doing?" Jack was working at another panel one-handed, his movements quick but precise. "Can't leave yet. Need to lock down the weapon's core programming. If we don't, someone else might restart it remotely. The station is breaking apart." Swift Hunter Reed's energy form pulsed with alarm. "We have minutes at most." "Then give me minutes," Jack replied calmly, though sweat ran down his face. "Unless you want to come back and do this all over again." The three superhuman beings looked at each other, then at their injured human teammate. They had never encountered this kind of thinking before. The willingness to risk everything to finish a job properly. "What do you need?" Commander Axe asked finally. "Keep the door from closing," Jack said, not looking up from his work. "These systems are failing. If that door shuts, we're all trapped." Commander Axe moved to brace the door with his crystalline body. Swift Hunter Reed used his energy form to stabilize the failing power systems around them. Quantum Master Veil shifted through dimensions, monitoring the station's deterioration. Jack worked quickly, his remaining hand flying over the controls. He ignored the increasing tremors, the groaning metal, and most importantly, the pain that was becoming harder to push aside. "Core programming locked," he announced finally. "No one's waking this thing up again." He stumbled slightly as he turned away from the panel, but caught himself against the wall. "Now can we leave?" Swift Hunter Reed asked anxiously. The station shuddered again, more violently this time. Large pieces of ceiling began falling around them. "Now we can leave," Jack confirmed, pushing himself upright. Though running might be a good idea. To everyone's surprise, Commander Axe moved to Jack's side. "Allow me," he said, and before Jack could protest, the crystalline being had lifted him carefully in his arms. "This is a little undignified," Jack commented dryly. "You've shown us a new kind of dignity today," Quantum Master Veil said as they hurried through the collapsing corridors. "One we never understood before." They reached the ship just as the station began its final collapse. Through the viewport, they watched the ancient structure break apart, its fragments dissolving into the last remnants of the quantum storms. In the ship's medical bay, as Swift Hunter Reed finally convinced Jack to let them treat his injury properly, Commander Axe spoke quietly to the others. "The Council needs to know about this," he said. "They need to understand what we witnessed today." His teammates agreed. They had seen something extraordinary, not just the saving of several star systems, but a demonstration of strength that would change the galaxy's understanding of power forever. The Grand Hall of the Galactic Council was silent as Commander Axe finished his report. Every being in the room sat motionless, trying to process what they had just heard. Even High Council Leader Bright's golden form had dimmed slightly with shock. Jack Stone sat in his usual chair, his empty left sleeve neatly pinned up. He had refused rapid regeneration or a synthetic replacement, saying he'd wait for his own people's medical technology to catch up. To the Council's amazement, he had already adapted to using one arm, taking notes as efficiently as ever. "So," High Council Leader Bright said finally, his voice unusually quiet, "you're telling us that a human, after losing an entire limb, not only continued the mission but insisted on completely securing the weapon's deactivation while the station collapsed." "That is correct," Commander Axe confirmed. His crystal form chimed with emphasis. "He never stopped. Not for a moment." Swift Hunter Reed floated forward. "We've all seen injuries in battle before, but we've always had immediate healing, instant repairs, or body transfers. The human." He paused, looking at Jack with newfound respect. He just kept going, as if the injury was merely an inconvenience. "Because it was," Jack said simply, looking up from his notebook. "The mission was more important than my arm." The council chamber erupted in murmurs. The concept was so foreign to them that many beings had to shift forms just to process it. Quantum Master Veil moved to the center of the room, his multi-dimensional form fully stable for the first time in anyone's memory. Members of the council, What we witnessed was not just bravery. It was a kind of strength we have never understood before. He gestured to the other heroes in the room. We have evolved beyond physical pain, beyond bodily damage. But in doing so, we may have lost something vital. The ability to continue despite injury, to push through pain, to adapt to loss and keep fighting. Humans never evolved past pain, Commander Axe added, his crystalline voice ringing clear, because they evolved to transcend it instead. The council members looked at Jack with new eyes. Where once they had seen a primitive being with limited powers, they now saw something else. A creature whose very limitations had bred it an extraordinary kind of strength. High Council Leader Bright rose from his chair. Jack Stone, he announced formally, the Council owes you more than gratitude. We owe you understanding. You have shown us a power we had forgotten could exist. He raised his hands, his golden form brightening. From this day forward, the Galactic Council recognizes a new classification of heroic ability. Human-grade resilience. It will be recorded as one of the rarest and most valuable traits in our galaxy. Jack looked up from his notes, surprised. That's really not necessary, he started to say, but Commander Axe interrupted him. Yes, it is, the crystalline being said firmly. Because the next time we face a crisis, we need to remember what real strength looks like. Swift Hunter Reed's energy form pulsed in agreement. We've been measuring power by how much damage we can avoid. Perhaps we should have been measuring it by how much we can endure. Jack looked around the room, at the most powerful beings in the galaxy all watching him with newfound respect. He smiled slightly and made a note in his book. Well, he said, if you're going to make it official, you might want to add something to the description. What's that? High Council Leader Bright asked. Humans don't just endure, Jack said, closing his notebook. We adapt. We overcome. And most importantly, we keep going. Not because we don't feel pain, but because we've learned that pain isn't the end of the story. It's just another challenge to overcome. The council chamber filled with a new kind of silence, not of shock or pity, but of profound respect. In that moment, every being present understood that they had witnessed not just the saving of several star systems, but the discovery of a power greater than any they had known before, the unbreakable resilience of the human spirit.